a leader of the APC in Kwara State. So somewhat, the leadership might be a bit diffuse, but don't take away the fact that Lai Mohammed now somewhat has some level of leadership role that he's playing in Kwara State. He's from Oro in the Rapodun local government area, the southern part of Kwara State. So a bit of a shift in political leadership may have happened in Kwara State, but take a look at what is going to happen in that state for the next few years. That means there is a movement of some of the major political players who have been moved away somewhat. How long will that be? When you hear some political slogan, Nelta, pray to God and try to tighten your belt so that it doesn't sweep you away. Otoge was one slogan that that enveloped Kwara State and perhaps gave the results to the APC in Kwara State. It's gradually moved several kilometers from Kwara State to Lagos State, but it didn't work that much, did it?
But you remember what they say in politics, nobody is actually out. It's the one game where you cannot say you're out. You never know. So when he was talking about the family, I'm just looking at him.
They might just be on the sideline for a moment.
Exactly.
All right, let's look at another.
At least until the court says so.
So in Rivers State, you're asking yourself, why is it so difficult in Rivers State to determine the election, considering that the two major parties, one of them is really not in play presently. They're having issues, legal issues, but Rivers State seems to be a state that whatever happens, even if it's a councillorship seat that is being contested for, you need to cross your arms and wait for a long time. That seems to be what is happening in Rivers State.
Well, again, I'll harken back to what Babajide Ogunsanwo told us yesterday. There's a lot of money involved in this. Rivers is one probably of two of the richest states of all the 36. Yeah. Between Rivers, from his statistics, between Rivers and Akwa Ibom, over this period, they've collected ₦1 trillion in federal allocation. So in that kind of situation, there's a lot at stake. Rivers is also a very diffuse geographical location. Yeah. So even if everything else was working perfectly, that was also going to be a factor. Add that to the fact that the ruling party at the federal level, and which is in opposition at the state level, wanted an inroad. Yeah. Somehow, as you pointed out,
they wanted a return.
As you pointed out, there was a legal obstacle in their way. Some would say self-inflicted, which they couldn't remove before the election. Now, these are all part of...
Plus also the fact that Rivers State is the seeming political headquarters of the PDP.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, at this point.
The contest is going to be very intense. Don't forget also, trade in Rivers State has two ports, on a port and Port Harcourt port. In terms of trade, eyes are going to be there. So in terms of...
It also has two refineries.
They also have two refineries.
I mean, that also speaks why, for me, the result coming back should not be state centralized. I.e., when a local government has declared who is that winner, we should have a color code there. And because we also understand that, back to demographics, if already one party already has some legal issues and rancor, which was made public and everybody knows it's not a private affair, how is it now a rancor in that state for the competition? These are things that, as Nigerians, we need to now go down and diffuse politics. At ex-local government, what is happening there? At this local government, what is happening there? When you see the American results coming in, you see them in all sorts of colors within each state, and suddenly, at the final note, it either turns a blue or a red. So we need to start looking at the local government critically. The issue of the local government within Nigeria has to be discussed once again, because it's like if we are the same thing we are doing with the unitary system, that we don't have a federalism. We need to be frank with that. We still have something that we need to do some restructuring, a big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, but it has to happen for a nation to move forward. But at the national level, you want to talk about restructuring. At the state level, there's a requirement for restructuring, because each of these men who are chairmen of local government also need to know that they are in charge within their local government and should be transparent. In my local government, this is what really happened. But now they are subsumed into the state, and it's that keep quiet. We don't want to know what happened in your local government.
Is it possible for states to have colors, like not like the ones on your board, but is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. And in some other climes, some political parties don't want to play national politics.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
They want to play county politics. They
local.
just want to play state politics.
Yeah, and local level.
And those, some states, like for example in the UK, and they've been there for several years. They've been there as long as the Labour Party. They've been there for as long as some of the most popular parties in the UK. In the United States, there are more than 2 parties. There are some parties they're content with playing local politics.
But maybe because their system rewards local politics in that kind of sense. When you look at the local government, politics here, nobody's rushing there in that kind of way they're rushing for federal.
If it is for service, actually,
yes,
there are a lot of to know, to think about what you need to pass on to the average people or to the ordinary people.
Sorry, Shehu, let me just put you on pause. Dayo Olaide in Abuja, I saw while Shehu was making the presentation and we're all interjecting, occasionally you would smile and then you'd kind of like almost like shake your head. Why was that?
And what we know about certain states in terms of the behavior in certain states. I have also been monitoring, and doing some comparison in terms of what happened at the national level during the presidential elections and trying to see what the outcomes in the states may be telling us. I think in some sense, what we are seeing as happening, outcome of the governorship elections in some of the states may actually be telling us some things, ahead of 2023. I think that by and large, there is need for us to make concerted effort and demand on INEC to make more data available about elections. The more data that we are able to have about what actually happens at the presidential, at the local, at the state elections, the better position we have to then be able to understand, identify trends, patterns, and then also be able to engage the conversation, more squarely, more effectively from an informed point of view. Right now, we look at performance of, the 2 leading parties in the states. Let's take again, for purposes of illustration, Lagos State. At the moment, our conversation and our analysis of elections, performance of both parties is still very limited to the total figure. So it's difficult for us, for example, to be able to drill down and interrogate the figure, say in Ikeja, because the depth that we need to be able to get to be able to make certain deductions in terms of asking questions about, are there changes happening in terms of the attitude of voters, the demographics that my colleague at the studio has repeatedly mentioned. There are so many things, so many important details that we are unable to interrogate at this stage. And I could see the frustration even in the attempt that Shehu is making in terms of, looking at the states, how they have performed. A lot of our analysis is limited by the quality and the granular level that we actually require to be able to make. Right now, I can tell you that between 2011 and now, the level of, voter turnout has dropped nationally. We can also look at the data that we have and be able to say, certain states that had the highest level of voter turnout between 2011 and now have shifted. In 2011, we actually observed that Akwa Ibom, Abia State, Delta State, a lot of the states from the South and a mix of Southeast had the highest number of highest voter turnout in 2011. Take that to 2015, and you suddenly realize that the voter turnout in those places, in many of them, actually halved. In a place like Abia, for example, that had off my head about 77% turnout, in 2015 it dropped to about 33 or 35%. Now, in the absence of detailed data that looks at wards, that looks at local government, it's very difficult for us to actually be able to say these are the factors responsible. We can hazard, in terms of violence, fear, but there are so many things.
I want to interrupt to say that
ought to be able to tell us.
We're going to have to. Thank you so much. We're going to thank you so much for joining us. Dayo Olaide is an analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, Sheon, what he talked about statistics, very critical, especially the drill down type of statistics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And indeed, sometimes those statistics help people to make sense of these bigger statistics
to even
that
plan.
we'll talk about.
Absolutely.
Yes, and one thing I also saw in the numbers, a Borno state where there are issues of the Boko Haram, the insecurity over time, is doing better than a Lagos where we had the freedom to go out. In other words, when you observe even certain things, it also speaks about, a philosopher will start looking, or a sociologist will look at the people. Is it that they are not concerned? Is it that they don't care? Why does Bonu, who is going through so much and the insecurity is higher, bombs can go off at any point, came out to vote? And down south with the highest voter PVC is recording such abysmal number.
I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done into political awareness of the people. The more political, you might not be educated, but you might be politically aware. Some of the places where you find people talk about politics, you'll be shocked at the level of education of some of those people. So I think researchers need now to find out what are those things responsible for some of these issues. But if I take you back to the talking points, maybe some of the states that we have not touched on, one of the states that is not quite ready is Sokoto State. One of the governors that left the APC for the PDP is having a very tough one. Another one is Ogun State. Ogun State, you know the dynamics. The governor is suspended by the party because he's supporting another candidate, the runner-up in that election. So somehow his party still retains the seat in the state. And the man who is always contested, Wega Isaka, came third in that state. So another very interesting, one of the states to remember, Ladi Nota and Ijoma, that will put on the very interesting state that we need to watch out for, the states to watch out for. Interestingly, they are coming out to really be states to watch out for. And also, let's take a look at Akwa Ibom State. How does this come out to you, the results and the numbers that came from Akwa Ibom?
I think Nyota should tell us, since that region is his...
Tell us what now?
Tell us what you
How does it come out to you when we listed Akwa Ibom as one of the states to watch out for? Now the results are here. What does this tell you, the result, the outcome?
Well, Akwa Ibom State, indeed, the southern part of the country, the citizens of that area are becoming more politically aware.
Very.
And they're taking, a lot of them are deciding what they want. And the truth is that they're going at it regardless of the party lines. Some of them will go, I'll join this party for this purpose. But at the end of the day, it's about the state, it's about the people, it's about service to the people. So before you know, by the time the elections are done, if you go back to check, you'll see them hugging and shaking hands. Now, in this case now, we had a guest here who told us about how a lot of his friends in Lagos traveled home for that elections in Akwa Ibom, in Cross River State, even in Rivers. A lot of people
Akwa Ibom has become heavily politically polarized now. The days that interestingly, there's some regions of the country that are traditionally just similar to the politics of the United States. They are traditionally for some political parties.
I think people are now calling Akwa Ibom watch and see politics. That's what we hear now.
Sometimes what you see is what you get in terms of...
That's what it is.
Exactly. So it wasn't a very interesting one for me to see perhaps APC getting a new run in that party and coming that far. But PDP was telling them that we own this place, isn't it? From what the figures are telling us. But if you look at Benue State, yet undecided, isn't it? And the kind of scenario playing out, what we saw in the presidential and the National Assembly election, and what we are finding out now, what do you see?
It's my state, so I mean, my father's state.
So everybody on this table has something to say about your map, Chef.
Well, in Benue, I think a lot is playing out. It's one of the states where the governor switched sides. Of course, the same governor had switched sides just before the 2015 elections because he was in the PDP. Moved to the APC, then moved back to the PDP. But on the ground there are a number of other gladiators who have also moved one way or the other. His predecessor, Gabriel Suswan, had gone and come back. George Akume, same thing. You know, and then you had David Mark, two-time Senate President, also in the picture, even though he said he wasn't contesting anymore this time. But he went and campaigned on behalf of his party. Now, all that was in the mix. Then you had the issues that had been on ground in terms of security, the herdsmen, farmers' classes, and all of that coming into the picture. So a lot of all that played in, and therefore what happened now is not really. I understand. I understand that.
To head back to Kano
that Kano is there. Kano is there, and we'll go there now and see if this is the final announcement of the results we'll be waiting for.